There's mistakes that I see soldiers make all the time. Things that I want you to avoid, things that you need to keep in the back of your mind that soldiers take for granted, things that they just don't think about, and it leads to mistakes. And I want to hopefully save you from making those mistakes, as I have 3 common mistakes that soldiers make that I have personally seen, maybe even done a couple of them. Now, if this is content you want to learn about the Army, you want to stay up to date about the Army, you want to help make your Army career a little bit better, then make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Click on that bell so you get alerts when new videos go live and become part of that awesome notification platoon. But let's talk about some mistakes. That way you'll be prepared for that and you know what to avoid. And we're going to start off with the very first one. That first one is maintaining accountability of your equipment. There are all sorts of things that can fall in this category. Things like, of course, your weapon, your Army gear, all that stuff. You don't want to lose any of this stuff. It can be pretty common that soldiers do happen to make mistakes and they end up losing their Army gear. They end up leaving their weapon, up against the vehicle and take off without it, leave it inside of a tent, leave it somewhere, on the ground or something, and just not paying attention. When you're in the field, you're on deployment, you got your weapon with you all the time, and you don't want to leave it behind somewhere, so you got to make sure you've got it with you at all times. I've seen it happen. I've seen soldiers just completely forget all about it, and the next thing they know, they're remembering, oh crap, I left my weapon in the chow hall, I left my weapon up against this vehicle, whatever, and hopefully you get to it before your leadership gets to it, because if they get to it before you do, well, then you're probably gonna be facing some consequences for that. So you gotta make sure to keep it with you. It ends up being this horrible thing of anxiety. I remember even after a deployment where you're constantly looking for your weapon, you're like just all done with your deployment, you're back in, stateside or whatever, and you're at a restaurant and you're like getting ready to leave that table and you're like, look down for your weapon. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. I don't have it with me anymore. Same goes for like your MVGs, keeping track of that, but also your Army gear, right? I've seen soldiers where they leave some of their TA-50, your Army gear, and don't keep track of it and they lose it. And then they end up stuck paying the bill, because if that's stuff that's accountable and things that you're gonna be responsible for, and you have to turn it in at some point, you're gonna have to pay for that stuff. I've actually been in that situation where I had the old school Army flak vest. I was in Fort Riley, Kansas, and the heater was blowing out of this vent, so I stuffed my flak vest up inside that vent to block the heater from coming out because it was summertime and it was too hot in my room. Well, then I had to go and take off to Korea and I had to turn in all my equipment, and I forgot that that's where that was at. I couldn't find it. I had to buy a new one. It wasn't super expensive, but still it was like $100 that I had to pay for this used one to be able to turn in. So you got to maintain accountability of your equipment. Now, before we get into number 2, I know what you're thinking. You're like, man, Chris, you look nice and warm and cozy. Well, I am. And you too can be nice and warm and cozy and get yourself a nice, sweet fleece here. This is actually a grunt style fleece. We got the grunt style logo right over here, and you got the American flag right over here. So if you visit the link down in the description box down below, you can get yourself a grunt style fleece, hoodie, whatever you want. And if you utilize the promo code Chaos Army at checkout, you can even save 25% off your first order. So check out all of their awesome winter line of stuff, hoodies, beanies, fleeces, all that stuff. Now, let's get into number 2 though. The second one is not managing your finances properly. Soldiers constantly do stuff like this where they get themselves in over their head in a car payment. They just are like, hey, I'm a single soldier, I don't have a whole lot of bills, I can afford this $1,000 car payment or this, really expensive interest rate on this car payment, no big deal. Then they start trying to do other activities and, now they get behind on that car payment, get behind on other, bills that they might have, and then they become in all sorts of trouble because now their leadership probably knows about it, because you can be in that situation where if you fall behind on certain bills that they will contact your leadership. It's not just with car payments. I've seen people do it with credit cards. You have the military star card, which is a military credit card, which is great if you use it properly, especially for people who are still trying to build that credit because they don't have any past credit because they lived with their parents before joining the Army, right? Now they're finally out on their own. They don't have any credit to kind of be able to utilize to get a better interest rate on a vehicle. Sometimes the military star card can be good as long as it's used properly. People commonly don't use it properly and they're buying big screen TVs, brand new PlayStations, computers, all sorts of stuff, racking up a huge bill on their Army star card or their military star card, and then not making the payments on them. Soldiers can be doing all sorts of things with their finances. Maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck because they're going out to the strip clubs, going out to the clubs, the bars, whatever, blowing their paychecks, having a good time and everything, and then they can't afford to keep up with the bills they might have, whether that's a cell phone bill, car payment, car insurance, or whatever the case is. That leads to some problems in their Army career, or at least for a while until you do finally get caught up. So it's important to make sure you're balancing things properly, right? If you're gonna get a military star card, be responsible about it. If you're gonna try to get a car, try to get maybe a family member that's trustworthy to co-sign with you so that way maybe you can get a lower interest rate. But make sure you're not living above your means, right? Especially when you're new in the Army, you're not making much money as far as what's going in your bank account that you have for extra money to be just blowing on all sorts of crazy stuff. So you gotta really manage your finances really well so that way you're not in these situations where you can't afford to keep up with your bills and you're having all sorts of issues. Now, the third and final one is maintaining weight standards and physical fitness standards as people do start to kind of get a little bit too comfortable with certain things and some of that kind of falls behind. On active duty, soldiers do physical fitness every morning, but physical fitness in the morning is really meant to maintain the standards, not really to excel. So if you're someone that needs more than just physical fitness in the morning, then you have to do a little bit extra work on your own time. Soldiers sometimes think that just by simply doing PT in the mornings that's enough, and that's not going to be enough for some individuals. Some individuals have great metabolism or whatever kind of a thing, and that is plenty, for you to be able to stay in shape and to be able to maintain weight standards and everything. But there are some individuals that that's not enough, and really for those individuals, physical fitness in the morning is meant to maintain the standards, and you're gonna have to spend some time maybe in your off time going to the gym, doing some form of workout to be able to excel in the standards, because that's what you want. You want to just maintain the bare minimum, you need to excel. If soldiers are not spending some off time going to like the gym, to work out with buddies and do some other things, then they tend to fall behind. And then it comes time for them to do PT in the morning and they're falling behind on the runs. It's time to do the fitness test and they can't keep up. And that's just something that people get lazy about. They don't want to do more than just that required physical fitness in the morning, and they don't want to do the extra stuff. You're gonna know your body. You're gonna know if you are someone that can just simply get by with just doing PT in the morning because that is good enough for you, for your metabolism, for your body structure. But if you're not able to keep up very easily with morning PT and doing the fitness test, then you're gonna need to be one of those individuals that do need to spend a little bit of extra time, either after work hours, the weekends, something, to be able to have an easier time maintaining those standards. Now, this was just 3 that I really wanted to be able to mention here. I'm sure there's individuals out there that can, list some things they see that soldiers commonly make mistakes of. Something that, they get too comfortable, get too relaxed, whatever, and then things fall behind, and now this is something that caused them to suffer a little bit in the Army, and I want to hear about that. I want to hear about some of your experiences in the comment section down below. What are some things you have seen other soldiers that commonly are making mistakes of doing? Things that they shouldn't be doing, but they're doing it anyways, and you see it back to back with many soldiers. There's a lot of possibilities out there of things that people can do that cause mistakes, and that's where your fellow friends in the Army, in the military come into play to let you know, hey, I've seen people screw up on this and I don't want you to be that person. So it's good to definitely reach out to those veterans out there that are within your platoon, within your company, within your troop battery, whatever, right? To be able to find out from them some advice and some tips as far as, hey, I want to be a good soldier. Hopefully you want to be a good soldier. And I don't want to make those same mistakes. So help me out, help me improve, help me be better, help me not fall into those kind of ruts that some soldiers fall into. Now, it's just some tips to kind of help you, advance, help you be better in the Army, whether you're in, going to be in, whatever the case might be. And I want you to continue, learning about more stuff. So YouTube thinks that based on your viewing history, this video right here makes sense for you to check out. So check it out. Check out links down in the description box down below for affiliate links, for grunt style, all that fun stuff. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.